Thank you guys so much for chiming in. This is live stream number 2 on the day. The first one was a couple hours ago. We're doing a quick post-game recap of the Mets spring training game today with Max Scherzer making his debut. So, of course, if you did not watch that already, please make sure you do, because post-game recaps will be a reoccurrence pretty much daily on the channel throughout the entirety of the season here on WardyNYM. But we have a lot to get into tonight. Of course, the heavy discussion will be on what is next for the Mets and free agency / a trade market. Are they done making moves? If they aren't, what players could they potentially land still that are available, not just a free agent, but the trade market respectively? What other moves can we still see across the league, and not even regarding the New York Mets, but as a whole, and so much more? That is what we will be breaking down in today's live stream, folks. So if you're watching this on replay, it's probably going to be short into around a half hour or so. And if it wasn't, then that means that some type of news happened throughout the live stream. So that's definitely a plus. But we got a lot to get into. I'm very excited to do just that. So again, shout out to everyone in here right now. I appreciate every single one of you. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you all are having a fantastic evening, morning, night, wherever you are, because I know we got people from all different time zones. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button again, and let's just dive right in. Like I said, we do have plenty to discuss, and I was trying to refrain from discussing most of these things, at least a good portion, in the live stream earlier today, as you guys were asking me in the Q&A. You know, I know that a lot of people were happy about Max Scherzer's debut, but a lot of people still want to talk about what is potentially in store for the Mets on the acquisition front. And that's a great question. So let me start off by saying that no, at this point in time, I do not have any, say, intel more than the average Joe, right? I know that throughout some live streams, I have told you guys some information that I heard, that some of it became a reality. Other situations didn't amount to anything. But as of right now, I just would like everyone to know that we are all on the same page in regards to what we know. Maybe I know more than you just because I've been following a lot more over social media, but this is all stuff that we can access and find. So, you know, I'm just saying, this isn't one of those things where I have these sources that are coming out of nowhere. I'm able to relay all this info. No, that's not the case for this stream, at least at the time of being live right here. But I really want to break down a lot here, and I know you guys do too. So before I go any further, again, shout out to every single one of you guys. Thank you all so much for being here. Like I said, this will be an extended live stream tonight, more than likely. Regardless if we get moves or not, we'll be discussing things for quite a bit, answering a lot of questions, and just seeing what is next, if at all, for the Amazing. So let me update on the live stream right now. I'm going to put a poll. I would like you guys to answer it. And we're already halfway to 100 likes. That's fantastic. So continue smashing that like and subscribe button. It's always appreciated. Shout out all my members in the chat, and shout out all my loyal subscribers and overall viewers. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Hope you all have been having a fantastic day. Baseball's back. I mean, I got to watch Max Scherzer absolutely shove on the mound for the Mets today. So I'm feeling pretty damn good, I got to be honest with you. But let me ask you guys in the chat this right now. Come on, everybody. All right, we got the poll in the chat. I know how I feel. My thought process hasn't really changed at all, but I'm curious what your thought process is. So again, shout out to Michael, shout out to all you guys. Yes, I know. B. Anderson, who is that? That is Brett Anderson, and he's someone that I really haven't talked about much. I'm looking forward to discussing him as I've been going through all the free agents available right now on the market through Spotrac, just seeing their contract statuses. And we're going to do a complete deep dive of really all the free agents out there, along with some trade guys that you maybe haven't thought of before. And regarding Anderson in particular, he's a situation awfully similar to other depth lefties that we've seen on the market, where if the Mets were to say land someone like him, it would be in the potential of a swing man, if you will. Basically, what we expect David Pearson to potentially be, but this would kind of have someone that's more solidified and can definitely eat you innings. But like I said, we got a lot to get into. I'm excited. I know you guys are too. Again, thank you all so much for being here. So let's dive in, everybody. So since the last time we talked, I talked with you guys, and I was assuming that Trevor Story was going to the Boston Red Sox. It was reported by iTalk Studios, Isaac, who's another big baseball YouTuber, and nothing happened that night. And a lot of people were wondering, how was it going to happen? Was it falling through? We saw the Yankees were back in on Story because Story made it a possibility to sign a shorter term deal. But all in all, even though it took 2 days later than expected, Trevor Story did land in Boston. He'll be playing second base, even though he's a better shortstop defensively. than Bogarts. Bogarts, of course, is a free agent after this season, so they have insurance in case in the scenario where they lose Bogarts after this 2022 year. But Trevor Story, 6 years, $140 million. There are, I believe, I think there are creative opt-outs in there. I could be wrong, however. I think there's some creative opt-outs in there. And same thing with the Miami Marlins, actually spending some money. And again, it's a little contradicting to me because you had Derek Jeter come out in the lockout prior to the lockout ending, leaving the Miami Marlins organization in part because he felt that he didn't have any more money to spend. He wanted to go all in. He wanted to get into Castellanos. They were connected with Conforto. They were connected with Soler. As you see, they ended up landing him. And they just weren't willing to spend the dough. But they did still spend money to a certain extent. They signed him to a 3-year, $36 million deal. The only positive I really see here is that Soler didn't land with a contending team, especially in the division. Not that he won't do well against the Mets, but I like Soler on the Marlins a million times more than I like Soler on the Atlanta Braves, who are essentially, of course, the team to beat. Same thing if, say, he went to the Padres, because I know the Padres have plenty of interest in him. I know earlier in his market, you saw that the Dodgers were interested in Soler. So Soler signed a 3-year, $36 million deal, but he has potential to opt out of this contract. I think he has 2 opt-outs. Don't quote me. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he does have at least 1 or 2 opt-outs in this for Miami. And he's a guy that very well can be used as trade bait at the trade deadline should Miami not be in a playoff position. So Soler's the guy to keep an eye on. I get my natural concern because when I think of Soler potentially being a guy that can opt out, essentially a rental, even though he's under contract for multiple years, he feels like an Adam Duvall 2.0 situation. So what does that mean? It does mean that I don't want Jorge Soler to land at the trade deadline with the Braves again, just like not just himself did last season, but Adam Duvall, who was originally a Brave, signed with Miami this past season, and then got traded again, but back to the Braves. So, and Adam Duvall, of course, had a big impact for the Braves come playoff time down the stretch. So, yeah, that's all I really have to say on the Soler story front. I'm glad that neither of them are, of course, with a team that's really going to be a big issue, at least on paper, what it seems for the Mets this year in the division. And Jesse, thank you so much for the kind words. We are on Watson watch. Okay, we'll be talking about Tony Watson. Tony Watson is not signed yet. We will be discussing him quite a bit. I'm not sure when he's going to land somewhere, but if we're talking about should the Mets still land a lefty, he is, in my opinion, one of, if not the best southpaw reliever available on the market to this point, right? After Andrew Chafin got picked up by the Tigers, and after we saw, of course, and after we saw, of course, the Mets signing Chase and Shreve, there's still room, there's still potential for them to land another lefty. I personally hope that they do, just because more depth, the better, assuming that they're not, say, banking all in on David Pearson being a lefty out of the pen, which I could be wrong. They very well may do that, but we don't know that at this point in time. So keep an eye on Tony Watson. We'll discuss him further in the live stream per usual. But Michael Conforto, he is the hot topic. He's the guy that I know the majority of you people, including myself, will be talking about until we find out where is he going to land. What is his destination looking like? Well, it has been reaffirmed, and I know this from my good buddy Michael Marino, who's been right endless times on social media, independent writer, covers, baseball and football. He said that it's beyond unlikely, basically, that Conforto will come back to the Mets. And I agree with him. There's truly no way that I see Michael Conforto and the Mets rekindling their relationship unless, one, it's a short-term deal, which is something that Conforto obviously has not wanted. But if his market is that bad, maybe that changes things. And two, he has to really be guaranteed a promising role where he's playing every day, either in right field or at the DH, probably more so right field than anywhere else. Because, again, if he's playing DH for a good portion, that may decrease his value, even though that I know that we have universal DHs now. But if, say, he wants to hit the market after this year, if, say, it's a one-year deal, naturally a player has more value if they have proven more defensive upside versus, say, being more one-dimensional because they've been stuck at the DH position. So Conforto is someone, you guys know, I've always loved Michael Conforto. He's been a big fan of, I've been a big fan of his, I should say, really since he came up in 2015 for the Mets. I know that a lot of you guys have really, uncomfortable feelings about Michael. I know a lot of you guys are in favor of him, and a lot of you guys are against him. But what I will tell you is that while I would love the Mets to bring him back, because he really profiles best for the Mets, but what they need, another outfielder to add more depth, and a guy that's a lefty bat to kind of get creative more so based on your matchups, because the Mets right now are more righty than lefty heavy in the outfield. We know that they got the lone lefty in Nemo, then they have Marte and Canna that are the righties. Infield wise, you have Escobar, that's a switch hitter, which is a plus. Same thing with Lindor, and then McNeil, the lefty hitter, and Alonso, the righty hitter. So overall, the Mets aren't terribly and aren't in a terrible spot when it comes to righty lefties, but ideally you'd imagine that they would want some more power there. I know they're banking on Dom Smith right now and Robinson Cano, and I know I've said this endlessly, and I will continue to until we realize for certain what the Mets are doing, or if they're done rather this offseason, is that ideally it just makes sense to still add another bat when you have uncertainties on what their production is going to be this year. I don't think that's an outlandish belief. I don't think you guys believe that's an outlandish belief. And overall, Michael Conforto, the likelihood of landing with the Mets is very slim right now, I would say. I really don't see it happening as much as I would love to be proven otherwise. We'll watch it as it goes, but the White Sox have always felt like a great fit for him. The Texas Rangers have showed continued interest in him. I wouldn't mind him in Texas at all. I mean, if he's going to go anywhere, I want him nowhere near the New York Mets, first of all, because I want to continue rooting for him. So give me the White Sox, the Rangers, if he's going to go anywhere. The Padres, of course, can still potentially be a fit. We saw other teams, the Mariners, have been linked, but I think the Mariners will be done because they got their corner outfield / DH lefty bat. And yes, Jesse Winker and the trade, over the past couple days with Eugenio Suarez, that monster one that we covered on the channel. But when you look at what's available for the Mets right now, Michael Conforto, he's the hottest bat still available on the market. He is the biggest bat available on the free agent market. But with saying that, it just doesn't feel like he's going to land back in Queens. So it might be a tough pill to swallow for us. I understand, especially when you look at the powerhouses that are in this division offensively in the likes of the Braves and the Phillies. But at the end of the day, this is something that if it is what it is, and it is what it is. We'll see how the season goes on. We'll see when we get to the trade deadline, and the Mets will be that desperate to still add a power bat. Could the Mets still add a bat this offseason? Yes. It's just really a big wild card. And as I've been saying, for how many days now, really for the most part, since the lockout got lifted, because the Mets haven't made one offensive acquisition. They've only done pitching acquisitions. Is that if the Mets do an acquisition, it feels beyond unlikely that we're going to know exactly what that is. It feels like something that's not going to really transpire until it's made public. And also talking about teams that have been interested in Conforto, I know the Blue Jays have been tagged with him, looking for that lefty bat, and plenty of other. There's a plethora of teams interested in Michael Conforto, and I'd imagine that his market is heating up as we speak, and he's going to have a destination sooner rather than later, knowing the fact that, yeah, he's the top dog still available out there after Michael Conforto, not Michael Conforto, pardon me, of course, Carlos Correa, and now Trevor Story off the market along with Jorge Soler. So let's get into it, guys, and I'm going to be answering a lot of your questions. Austin Meadows. We're going to be talking quite a bit about Austin Meadows. That's why we got him on the thumbnail, because Meadows' market is really difficult for me to personally gauge, because Austin Meadows is a massive power hitter, a defensive liability, not the worst defender in the world, but definitely a guy that you don't necessarily want starting in your outfield every day, right? He profiles best as the DH position. Big pop, had a little bit of a down year when it comes to, normal average and stuff, but feels like another guy that's going to come out next season and still continue to prove. Austin Meadows hasn't hit his peak yet, in my opinion. He's only 26 years of age, multiple years left of control in his contract. The Rays have had him in trade talks because the Rays can't pony up the dough to a lot of the guys that they would like to keep. Meadows is a guy that they can live with parting with, depending on what exactly the trade is looking like. And when you look at what the Mets could really use this in, if what the Mets can use actually right now in their lineup, it is a middle of the order power lefty bat. That's Austin Meadows, especially if you're not going to get Conforto. Austin Meadows is that guy. Can the Mets afford, however, to go after Austin Meadows? That's the thing. So I don't know. That's a wait and see situation. We don't even know for certain if he's going to be traded. I have him as a potentially connected candidate, however, because out of all players that we have discussed as of now that are available in the free agent or trade market, there really aren't many lefty bats out there, let alone power lefty bats. And ideally, the Mets have Dom Smith. They have Robinson Cano. So that's why it feels like an unlikelihood on his front too, because are the Mets really going to give up some significant assets for a guy that they feel they basically have already in Dom Smith? Now, Dom can't play defense the way that, of course, Meadows can in the outfield. But the point is that they both profile best as the DH position. And yes, I would like Meadows in the corner if he's going to split time with Canada, depending on matchups, far more than I would like Dom Smith there. But he's another big question mark because, again, bat-wise, he makes oodles amount of sense for the Mets. But the Mets are really Dom Smith, Robinson Cano might be the downfall as to why they don't land another big lefty bat, when in reality, they probably should. So we're gonna evaluate. We're gonna see if anything happens tonight. I don't think anything drastic is gonna happen tonight. Like I said, when it comes to Conforto, when it comes to Tommy Pham, that we'll discuss further in a second. When it comes to a lot of these players, when we find out their destination, I believe is going to just be pretty much random. I'll be surprised if there's a good amount of buildup to that point where we find out where they're going to land. But before I go any further, I want to thank you guys all so much again for being here. Continue smashing that like and subscribe button. Like I said, I'll be getting plenty of your comments in the live stream per usual. Just want to share everything that I have to share right now because, again, Austin Meadows is a very interesting piece here. Let's see. Max Scherzer's here, yes. And talking about Max Scherzer again, for those that did not check out my post-game recap, make sure you do on Max Scherzer's debut and the Mets 3-0 loss in spring of the Marlins. No, I'm not fazed by the fact that the Mets lost to the Miami Marlins with a bench/AAA lineup tonight. And even if they did have their starters out there, I wouldn't be fazed either. We just started spring. The whole point of spring is to get guys ramped up and going for the season. If we're putting enough stock into spring training games to the point where we're worried heading into the season, then I think that there is some self-reflection that needs to be put in place also, because trust me, that is not going to impact anything when you have a 162 season and you're going to go through all your ebbs and flows, ups and downs for sure. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. How long am I going to go for tonight? I don't know, Milo, but it's definitely going to be a while. Definitely going to be multiple hours for sure. And again, good chance that many of you guys watching this right now can't see the multiple hours because I cropped it to about just a half hour. And that just means that no breaking news happened that was warranted to continue the live stream, because I don't want you guys, if you're watching a replay, especially if you're watching, hours worth of answering just questions and, talking about a lot of repetitive things, because I know that can be a drag. But in the live stream, it's different because I know a lot of you guys are just chiming in as we do things and stuff like that. But let's see. What's up, RP? How's it going? Again, shout out all you guys, members and overall supporters on the channel. I know you guys have questions and I have plenty of answers for you. Any surprises on today's cuts? No, not really, actually, because after quickly reviewing that clearly, I believe clearly Mark Vientos, Nick Plummer, among multiple others, were cut today by the Mets to, get prep for the minors. None of that's really surprised because none of them have a spot on the Mets bench right now. The one that looks like is the fourth outfielder for the Mets right now is Travis Jankowski. He has MLB experience. He has elite speed. He has a really strong glove there, and is a guy that gets on base at a pretty good clip. So not the fourth outfielder that I would prefer versus what you could potentially add depth-wise. And that's why I do have some hope that the Mets will still add depth, especially with the likes of a Starling Marte, where we have to make sure he's healthy. But he's a guy that, like anyone else in the outfield, one injury can make or break your season, right? Are the Mets going to start banking on Jankowski and clearly on Nick Plummer right away? I hope they don't. I really hope they don't. So I do believe that they're going to still add another piece here, preferably outfield more than anything, because it just makes too much sense. It's almost hard to justify not doing anything as much versus doing something. And Ryan, what's up? Just no spam in the chat, buddy. Again, shout out all you guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, to answer your question, I'm not concerned about Marte, but I am concerned about the Mets and how they are planning to operate right now. Because if they do not do any more moves, all it takes is one big injury. How long did it take last season for us to our season to just completely turn on its head? And I know that the Mets had success when their guys were hurt. I know that that's not the best way to put it, but the point I'm trying to make is that you're still banking on so much when you have a Brandon Nimmo who has yet to play a normal full season and is walk here. You have Starling Marte, who's an absolute stud, but he's not healthy right now. And while I'm not concerned for him, obliques are those things that could easily be tweaked with the type of game that he has. Starling Marte led the league in stolen bags last year, 47. Oblique is one of those things where if that happens again, it's going to nag for a bit, and you can't rush obliques. You can't do anything with oblique injuries for the most part. You just have to wait it out. That's exactly what happened to Francisco Lindor with his swing in Pittsburgh last year, halfway through the season. That was the start of truly the downfall of the year for the Mets, along with Jacob deGrom gained his massive injury pre-All-Star break. So injuries, we all know how it impacts the Mets. And that's just why, again, you have to reaffirm how important it is to add as much depth as you possibly can. There is still depth out there. I believe baseball, you don't got to spam. I saw your comment once already. Again, thank you for being here. We'll address everything. But point I'm trying to make again is, for where the Mets are right now, I love their lineup. I really do. But I would still like them to add a little bit more. And I don't think it's wrong. I really don't think it's wrong and feeling that way. And I don't think it's wrong to believe that the Mets will do more, because Steve Cohen himself, in case you guys aren't aware, I really hope he's not toying with us, even though I know he tends to do this. But Steve Cohen, the man who famously likes tweets by accident, did like a tweet yesterday that we put on Twitter. And it was a tweet just from a random fan, saying that the Mets basically that they still should add another bat or two. And Steve Cohen liked that tweet. So I saw it, talked about it right away. And I was joking. I'm like, let's see how Steve says that, oh, he accidentally meant to like that tweet too. But the point I'm trying to make is that that's a good sign. I do believe that the Mets are continuously active in the free agent and trade market. And maybe they are more so active in the trade market than anything else if they're looking for someone offensively, because look at what's available in the free agent market. You have Michael Conforto, you have Tommy Pham. That's it. And Michael's an unlikelihood. Pham would be a nice fit, but he's not a lefty bat, which maybe the Mets would prefer. I would assume that they would prefer. Arte, look, Twitter. Okay, I'll definitely check. But again, I'm going to answer a donation real quick. But the point I'm trying to make is that Steve Cohen, he's kind of giving us a idea that, yes, it looks like they may very well add another bat. I hope he's not toying with us, because normally when he does stuff like this, it feels like that there is a good chance that something is going to happen out of it. And, again, it's a wait-and-see situation, but I'm excited. I don't think the Mets are done. They showed interest in Trevor Story. They weren't a heavy favorite for him, but they were interested. They dabbled in the Story market. I like that. Just to see to what extent, we don't know, but I like the fact that they were connected. That gives me belief that the Mets have, of course, still been active in things. And again, just because things are quiet right now does not mean that the Mets are done. But when you look at the roster right now, trade-wise, I don't expect Jeff McNeil, JD Davis, or Dom Smith to be traded. The Mets are only going to trade one or multiple of those pieces if they find a trade that's best for them, because they've been offered things. They've been connected to the Padres. The Padres have like McNeil and Dom. They've been connected to a lot of people. There is no denying that whatsoever. But just because teams have shown interest in those players does not mean that the Mets feel that they're getting the best value out of a deal. And for guys that all aren't free agents until 2025, the last thing I want the Mets to do is trade guys for the sake of trading them. You don't want to do that, especially with guys with multiple years of control. That is an important value in itself. And with them expected to, again, have good years, there's a good chance that the Mets may deal one or multiple of these players leading up to the trade deadline, should they not now, if, say, they're on a limited role with the club, and if the Mets are really in need for, I don't know, a lefty bat by that time, or, another reliever, or just something, whatever it may be, because we have no clue what the Mets will be looking for at the trade deadline at this point in time. We can assume all we want, but we have to see how they play on the field and where they're at in the standings by the time we get halfway through the season. But I'm going to address a donation now. Again, shout out all you guys. Thank you all so much for being here. Make sure you continue smashing that like and subscribe button if you're just chiming in. Help us get 200 likes for the next short-term goal if we're not there already. Thank you guys so much in advance. And help us get a 15K subs if you guys enjoy consistent Mets coverage on YouTube like this. Always appreciate it. Let's see. I did not play much basketball, no. Only when I was a kid, I played for like a year or two, but I did not play much basketball. So, yeah, you probably played someone who looked like me, but definitely wasn't me. Friar Frank, thank you so much for the $20 dono. I appreciate that. Frank says, what's up, bro? Just checking in. Oh, thank you so much. Just checking in. Hope you were doing well, Frank. I know you've been a great supporter. I'm excited for the Mets season. I know you are too. So thank you so much for that donation, LFGM. Hype in the chat for Frank with the amazing $20 dono. Really appreciate that, my friend. Tyler Clippard's an interesting piece, but I don't think the Mets are going to land any more righty relievers. I think if they're going to land another reliever, it's going to be a lefty, because the Mets have a plethora of righty options versus a limited supply of lefties, even after landing Chase and Shreve. Happy with the offseason. I think you're reading too much into him, into the story. No, I don't think I'm reading too much into that. I think the whole point is that I'm trying to make is that it just means that the Mets are still active in the market. I don't think there's been any reason to believe that the Mets aren't still active in the free agent / trade market at all. Does that mean that they're going to do anything, let alone anything significant? I have no clue. But I think it's important at the end of the day. If you see that the Mets are still tied, there's a good reason for that. And when you look at this roster right now, it's damn good. Don't get me wrong. But there's no denying that they can still make this team better. Now, whether they can do it right now, if they have the right value, that's, again, a wait-and-see situation. Mab, what's up, my friend? Hey, Wardy, with all the potential injuries to DeGrom and Scherzer, do you think the Mets will go after anyone like Johnny Cueto or Chris Archer for depth? I think Johnny Cueto looks like he's actually going to go to the Red. the Twins. Pardon me. I think I saw a report earlier by a Hispanic reporter. I'm blanking on his name, not Hector Gomez, but another one. I think I could be wrong. It looks like he's going to go to the Twins. And Archer, I just don't think that those are guys you need. To be honest, I think that there is still depth out there, still lefty depth that I would like more than Archer and Cueto. And that brings in, I think that's a great segue to talking about Brett Anderson, because Brett Anderson, the veteran southpaw, had a very solid season last year for the Milwaukee Brewers. But of course, because the Milwaukee Brewers are so stacked, they didn't need to keep someone like Brett Anderson in their rotation. Anderson, who had been with the Brew Crew for a while, southpaw, had a very respectable season last year. If you're looking just based on the ERA in itself without looking at the advanced numbers, he's Tyler Anderson. He's just like the other Anderson that signed with the Dodgers, the fellow southpaw that was a former Pittsburgh Pirate and then was traded to the Mariners last season. And now is with the Dodgers, and he can be utilized really as a swing man, lefty depth in itself. But yeah, Brett Anderson had a 4.22 ERA last season when Milwaukee, in his final year with them, the 6'4", 230-pounder, originally drafted the second round in 06 by the D-backs, a 4 wins to 9 loss record in 24 games at just around 96 innings pitched, 58 strikeouts, a 1.35 whip. So Anderson, again, lefty depth. I'm appealed by him. I'm intrigued by him, I should say. Give me 1 second, folks. Just getting a drink here. Okay. No, what I was going to say about Anderson is that when it talks about lefty depth, I love that. If the Mets are going to go down a route where if they're going to land another starter as a swingman, Brett Anderson is, if not the best, then one of the best options still out there. And I'm going to be completely frank. I was 1,000% forgetting that he was still a free agent because he just felt like one of those guys that was still with Milwaukee, but he's not. And I'm drinking coffee right now to everyone that's curious. And let's keep it PG in the chat, you hooligans. But going back to my point, Brett Anderson, if the Mets are going to land another lefty, especially as a lawn reliever type thing, especially if they say don't want to toy with David Pearson out of the pen and feel that they just want to continue to roll with him as a starter, meaning he will start the year in AAA. Brett Anderson is definitely a nice veteran piece for you that can give you a lot of versatility. So I'm going to keep an eye on him. I'm assuming that he's still going to want to be a full-fledged starter somewhere. May he put himself in a situation where he would like to be a swingman if that's going to really entice him coming to the Mets when the Mets are in a win now stage? It's possible. Again, I'm not going to get too worked up, I should say, on Brett Anderson on if he's going to come to the Mets or not. He's just an intriguing option out there when you're looking at lefties and what's available. And same thing when, we all love Josh Hader, but Josh Hader, again, is a pipe dream and a half. I know the Mets showed interest in him post-lockout, but we haven't really heard much since. And again, I'm not going to get my hopes up on that too much. And Brett Anderson's advanced numbers aren't anything pretty either. Had a 5.85 times ERA, so he got really lucky with a good defense behind him. He would have a good defense with the Mets too, so I'm really not all concerned there. Again, just an innings eater, quite literally just an innings eater that can be utilized in multiple ways. So I would say keep an eye on Brett Anderson. Even if he doesn't land with the Mets, I feel like his market will start to heat up fairly soon because he is one of the better starters still out there / swingmans should he be utilized that way. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on him. And when you're looking at the other guys too, the guys that the Mets have reportedly been connected to, the only one out of those players that I think actually has potential to still land with the Mets is Mr. Watson. Out of Watson, everyone else feels unlikely. Hader's unlikely because of how much you have to give up to get him. Not impossible, but really unlikely. Weaver from the Diamondbacks, I don't see that happening. Mets chimed in on him, but that was before landing Chris Bassett. Rogers, same thing. The Twins are in win now, especially after landing Correa. I don't see them trading away their best reliever. Michael Conforto, short-term possible, but still very unlikely. And Tyler Mahle, really not going to happen because the Mets already landed Chris Bassett. Potential fits. All these guys make sense for the Mets for the most part and do have some backing to them, at least in the hypothetical scenario. That being Tommy Pham for the depth outfield piece, Austin Meadows for depth outfield / DH, the best lefty power bat available out there. There's no one really that stands out to me trade-wise that the Mets can probably afford, even if he costs a little bit. Suter, Brett Anderson, all those guys keep in mind. Frank, thank you so much for the donation again. I appreciate that. People need to realize come July and we're right there. We could splash again and trade for a big name like we did with Baez. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I think a lot of people are already jumping the gun so far on the trade deadline, thinking that they know for certain what the Mets are going to need then, when we have no clue. We have literally no clue. And again, that's assuming that the Mets don't address maybe what they would plan to address at the deadline still this offseason. There's still potential for the Mets to make more moves. We just don't know. I mean, you would think that a lefty bat and a left-hand reliever is still what's in the mix for the Mets if they're going to land more guys. Those are still the two biggest holes in this lineup. I don't see how anyone really disagrees with that. So come trade deadline, yeah, there's definitely a solid chance that they can make a massive splash. And I expect them to, depending on what exactly their status is, because again, the Mets have a massive draft coming up this June, and they're going to be drafting 6 guys. They have 6 selections in this year's draft. They're going to be making some big picks. They normally do really well in the draft. So they're going to have a lot more prospect capital and depth to potentially work with in a trade, depending on the scenario and what is available then, and what, again, makes most sense for them. But Frank, thank you so much again for the donation. Really, really appreciate that. Any Jays news? Nothing crazy on the Blue Jays front as of now. The only thing further that I've seen is that I know that they have been in the works looking for another lefty bat, like a Michael Conforto, among others. Ed, thank you so much for the donation. Nimmo always hurt. Marte already is drop off. After them is huge. Okay, huge. Now, do we not get another outfielder and be okay with it? I think the Mets should still add another outfielder. Personally, I think it's just smart for them because of where their status is right now. That's just me. I know most of you guys feel the same. You feel the same way too, Ed. And Nimmo, I do think is going to have a nice, healthy season. But again, knocking on wood, I'm not trying to jinx anything, especially if he plays more so in left than center. But Marte, with his health concern right now, even though I'm not really concerned about him, is he going to start the season in center, or is he going to play in left? Because maybe they don't want to risk anything with him too early. They're being very cautious with him right now. They're not trying to rush anything. So you got to keep that in mind. But outfield-wise, I agree. It would make sense if the Mets still landed another one. Oh, and Ed, no worries about the grammar. But again, to this point, if you guys have been watching this on replay, especially, that's really all you need to know in this one. Keeping an eye on these specific players in the market. Where are they going to potentially land? Maybe they will be a strong fit for the Mets. Maybe they won't be. Maybe they're all going to go somewhere else. But the Mets still feel like that they have some more work that can be had here. Maybe it's more unlikely than I initially believe at this point in time. But definitely keep an eye over, the next coming days for Michael Conforto's market. Austin Meadows, is he going to get traded? Same thing with these relievers, where they're going to land, because there's still some solid ones out there that I could see making sense for the Mets, more so on the depth front per se. Maybe not so much high leverage. I think high leverage guys, the best guys available out there, are via trade. But again, Aaron Loop wasn't deemed as a high leverage reliever for the Mets. And look what he did for us last season. So that's all you really need to know if you're watching this on replay. And again, thank you so much for watching. And shout out everybody that's been live. We're going to continue the live stream. But for everyone that isn't watching live, that's where we are going to cut things off for all the latest news, rumors on the Mets and overall MLB front.